Anne, the Iron Lady of the royal family, has been forced to step back due to illness. But the monarchy cannot pause. A letter is sent, a secret meeting is called, and the one chosen to inherit Anne's spirit is a mere 10-year-old girl, Charlotte. Not a crown, but a small brooch. Not a proclamation, but a quiet act. From horse parades to trooping the color, Charlotte steps up not just to wave as a princess, but to fill the void left by Anne. This isn't just a story of a childhood sacrificed. It's a moment of transition when a new generation begins to carry the weight of a legacy that hasn't yet stopped. Early morning in London, the air is heavy with mist. In the narrow streets around Trafalgar Square, people start their day unaware of the earthquake about to sweep the nation. From Buckingham Palace, a brief but chilling announcement airs on the BBC, stopping millions in their tracks, ears pricked, hearts sinking. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, will indefinitely suspend her royal duties due to serious health concerns. One sentence. No explanation, no promises. Just the raw truth slicing through the polished veneer of the British monarchy. The press explodes. Sensational headlines flood Twitter, from Princess Anne hospitalized to royal family faces, crisis on forums. People whisper about the Iron Lady, the nickname Princess Anne has carried for 4 decades. No one can believe it. Anne, who rode horses through the toughest challenges, who never missed a charity event, is the first to fall. In the long corridors of Buckingham Palace, where light from towering windows spills onto marble floors, the atmosphere is stiflingly silent. The steady footsteps of courtiers echo, but no one dares speak loudly. In a secluded corner, the door to a private meeting room creaks open. Princess Charlotte, only 10 years old, steps in, her wide, curious eyes scanning the room. The pale blue dress she wears seems slightly too big, as if hastily chosen from an older princess's wardrobe. Before her sits King Charles, her grandfather, his face more stern than usual. Beside him is Prince William, her father, his shoulders rigid as if bearing the weight of a kingdom. And Catherine, Princess of Wales, her mother, sits with a gentle smile, but eyes betraying worry. Charlotte clutches her mother's hand, feeling the room's gaze on her. She doesn't understand why she's been summoned to this place, usually reserved for grown-up meetings, but she knows something momentous is happening. Charlotte King. Charles begins, his voice low but clear. There are times when our family faces great challenges, and today you will begin to understand that. The girl nods, though her heart brims with questions. She looks to her father for an explanation, but William remains silent, his lips pressed tight. Catherine gives her daughter's hand a reassuring squeeze, as if to say everything will be all right. Meanwhile, at King Edward VII Hospital, Princess Anne lies in a bed, her face pale but her eyes as sharp as ever. A nurse checks her heart monitor nearby. Anne despises hospitals, she always has. To her, lying still is a luxury, almost a betrayal of herself. But for the first time, her body refuses to obey. "Don't let the press know I'm here," Anne tells her aide standing in the corner, her voice hoarse but commanding. "And make sure Charles gets my letter." The aide nods, clutching a sealed white envelope. Inside are Anne's handwritten words, each stroke firm, yet tinged with fatigue. The letter is short, but every word carries weight. Anne knows her time is running out. She doesn't fear death, but she fears leaving a void the monarchy isn't ready to fill. She thinks of Charlotte, the 10-year-old with a radiant smile and eyes bright as fire. Anne sees herself in Charlotte, not in looks, but in that stubborn spirit that resolved to defy definition. "The girl has light," Anne whispers, gazing out the window at London's gray sky, subtly shifting. Back at the palace, the private meeting continues. Charlotte sits upright, trying not to swing her legs under the chair, a habit she hasn't outgrown. "What can I do to help?" Charlotte suddenly asks, her voice clear and firm. The room falls silent. King Charles leans forward, his hands clasped tightly on the table. "Charlotte," he says, "our family isn't just about crowns or thrones. We are servants. And sometimes you must serve even when you're not ready." The girl nods, not fully grasping his meaning, but feeling the weight of his words. They aren't like the fairy tales her mother reads at bedtime. This is a real story, and for the first time, Charlotte realizes she's not just a character in it, she's the one who must write the next chapter. As the meeting ends, Charlotte leaves with an odd sensation. She's not afraid, but she senses a change coming, as if the door to her childhood has half closed. Holding her mother's hand, she walks down the long corridor, unaware that a journey awaits one that will change her forever. In King Charles's private study at Buckingham Palace, the air is thick as if the walls themselves hold their breath. Charles sits behind a mahogany desk, his aged hands trembling as he holds an opened white envelope. Before him stands Prince William, rigid, his eyes betraying tension. The letter in Charles's hands isn't just words, it's the last wish of his sister, Princess Anne, who battles illness in silence. Charles rereads the lines, his voice low, and measured each word a stone on his heart. "I know my time is short," the letter reads. "Charlotte, she has the light I once had. Don't let it be extinguished. Shape her, Charles, as father shaped us. The monarchy needs someone like her when we're gone." He pauses, his eyes red but resolute. Looking at William, Charles slides the letter across the desk. "She is Anne's hope," he says, his voice hoarse with emotion. "And I trust as her father, you will protect and mold Charlotte into someone who can follow my sister's path. The monarchy is weakening, William. Our numbers dwindle. We cannot let that light fade." William takes the letter, his fingers gripping it as if to crush it. He skims the words, each one a dagger. "Charlotte, his daughter, only 10, still plays with toy horses and giggles in Kensington's gardens. How can she bear the burden that cost even Anne, the Iron Lady, her health?" Father William says, his voice controlled, but laced with worry. "Charlotte is too young. She's not ready. She doesn't understand the monarchy's pressure. To thrust this on her now is to push her into a battle she can't win." Charles rises, stepping closer to his son, his eyes sharp as steel. "None of us were ever ready, William," he says, his voice low but commanding. "I wasn't ready when I took the throne. Anne wasn't ready when she became this family's pillar. But we learn to rise because no one else will do it for us. Charlotte is your blood, and she has a strength you haven't yet seen." William turns away, still clutching the letter. He thinks of Diana, of nights she wept in the dark under royal pressure. He swore to shield his children from that fate, yet now he must push Charlotte to its edge. "I'll do what's needed," he finally says, his voice dry. "But if she breaks father, it will be our fault." Charles places a hand on his son's shoulder, a rare gesture of closeness. "Teach her duty, William, not to become Anne, but to become herself, a stronger Charlotte." That's what Anne wanted. That evening in William's study at Kensington Palace, Charlotte slips through the door. She didn't mean to snoop, she only wanted to ask about Aunt Anne, about why everyone's been tense since the morning meeting. But as she enters, she spots the letter on the desk, Anne's handwriting clear as a whisper from afar. William had left it there, rushing off after an urgent call from advisors. Charlotte hesitates, her heart pounding. She knows she shouldn't, but curiosity wins. She picks up the letter, skimming the words. "Charlotte, she has the light I once had. The monarchy needs her." Each word hits like a blow. She feels breathless, her trembling hands dropping the letter to the floor. This isn't a princess game, not the time she wore pretty dresses and waved to crowds. This is a real duty, and it's pressing down on her shoulders. She sinks into a chair, her mind reeling. Anne's image flashes, the woman who always stood tall, always acted, always stayed silent amid criticism. Charlotte once thought she wanted to be like her, but now she's afraid. Afraid she's not strong enough, not good enough, not anything the monarchy expects. The door swings open. William steps in, his eyes locking onto the letter on the floor. "Charlotte," he exclaims, his voice a mix of anger and worry. He kneels, picking it up, but when he meets his daughter's gaze, something stops him. Not rebellion, not fear, but an awakening, as if she's just realized she's no longer a child. "I read it," Charlotte says, her voice small but firm. "I know what Aunt Anne wants, but Dad, I'm not sure I can do it." William takes her hand, his heart twisting. He wants to say she doesn't have to, that he'll protect her forever. But Charles's words echo. "The monarchy is weakening. Our numbers dwindle." He knows, however painful, it's time to teach her duty. "You don't have to do it now," William says, his voice softer. "But you need to learn to be strong, Charlotte. Not for Aunt Anne, not for me or Grandpa, but for yourself. I'll be here, but you have to walk forward." Charlotte nods, her eyes still uneasy. She feels the pressure closing in like a wave ready to sweep her away. But deep inside, a small spark ignites, a spark of resolve, of the light Anne saw in her. The Royal Ascot Horse Parade, a globally watched royal event, is days away. Charlotte is asked to appear alongside her mother Catherine in place of Princess Anne. On the ornate carriage, Charlotte sits beside her younger brother Louis, the 7-year-old, excitedly pointing at the crowd. Catherine opposite them smiles gently, but her eyes betray tension. "Just wave and smile, children," she instructs. The Ascot crowd cheers as the carriage rolls past the grandstands, sunlight glinting off elaborate hats and tailored suits. But amid the applause, a sharp crack rings out. The carriage lurches violently, a wheel loosening, causing it to wobble dangerously. Louis shrieks, clutching his sister's hand, his eyes wide with panic. Catherine reaches to hold her children, but the carriage continues to sway, threatening to topple. Screams erupt from the crowd, cameras zooming in like arrows. Reporters jostle, shouting, "The princess is trapped." The carriage is collapsing. Charlotte's heart pounds, but she refuses to let fear win. "Louis, hold my hand," Charlotte commands, her voice sharp and clear, cutting through the chaos. Without waiting for guards, she pushes open the carriage door, steps onto the ground, and pulls her brother with her. Louis trembles, but his small hand grips hers tightly. The crowd steps back, stunned by the 10-year-old standing tall amid the chaos. Charlotte turns, waving with a reassuring smile, as if this were part of the parade. "Everything's fine," she shouts, her voice clear and authoritative. Without pause, she leads Louis through the crowd, her hand firm in his, heading toward the safety of the royal enclosure. Upon reaching it, she stops, faces the grandstand, and delivers a perfect curtsy, as if no crisis had occurred. Catherine, escorted by guards, rushes to embrace her children, her eyes shining with pride and astonishment. The crowd erupts in applause, the cheers thundering like a storm. But the press seizes the moment. Cameras capture every second Charlotte pulling Louis, waving, curtsying. Within minutes, the images flood social media. A major newspaper publishes an immediate headline: "Charlotte at Ascot Anne's 1972 Spirit Reborn." The article compares her to Princess Anne, who once handled a similar incident with remarkable calm. "No panic, no hesitation, just action," it reads. The 10-year-old has proven she's the living legacy of the Princess Royal. After the Ascot incident, Charlotte becomes the nation's focus, but the spotlight brings shadows. The press hails her as Anne reborn, yet whispers of a conspiracy behind the carriage mishap make William and Catherine increasingly wary. Amid the line between admiration and danger, Charlotte receives an unexpected invitation from Princess Anne to join her for tea at Gatcombe Park, where she's recovering. No press, no ceremony, just the two of them. Charlotte enters the small room at Gatcombe Park, the scent of Earl Grey mingling with the quiet air. Anne sits in an armchair, her face pale, but her eyes sharp as knives. Charlotte takes a seat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, feeling as if she's facing a general rather than her great aunt. "You did well at Ascot," Anne begins, her voice hoarse but commanding. "But child, your eyes say you're scared." "Am I right?" Charlotte bites her lip, wanting to deny it, but Anne's gaze pierces through any facade. "I'm not scared of the crowd," the girl says, her voice small but firm. "But I'm scared. I won't be able to be like you. Everyone wants me to be you, but I don't know if I'm strong enough." Anne gives a rare chuckle, not to comfort, but to acknowledge. She sips her tea, her eyes distant, as if revisiting the past. "When I was your age, I was scared too," she starts, her voice low. "My father, King George, always said the monarchy isn't about glory, it's about duty. I hated that. I wanted to ride horses to be free. But every time I fell off a horse or from a mistake, I learned that strength isn't about not being afraid. It's about standing up when the world wants you to fall." Charlotte listens, her heart pounding. Anne continues, her voice heavier now. "I paid a price for that duty, Charlotte. My health, my time, even my own dreams. The monarchy gives you a crown, but it takes much in return. You need to know that right now." Charlotte feels breathless, the weight of the letter Ascot and judging eyes piling up. She clenches her fists, her voice trembling but resolute. "Will I get to do what I want, Aunt Anne? Or will I just be someone for others to control?" Anne sets her teacup down, the motion deliberate and meaningful. She locks eyes with Charlotte, her gaze unyielding. "No, child. You won't get to do what you want. None of us do. But you will get to choose how you become. A weak princess bowing to public opinion, or someone who stands firm even when the world turns its back. That's your choice." Anne's words are a flame both burning and illuminating. Charlotte feels a surge of heat, but before she can respond, Anne unpins a silver horseshoe brooch from her jacket, a small but gleaming heirloom, as if it holds an entire legacy. She hands it to Charlotte, her hand trembling slightly, not from weakness but from the moment's gravity. "This isn't for decoration," Anne says, her voice low but powerful. "It reminds you choose silence when others choose noise. Act as you did at Ascot. That's how we survive." Charlotte takes the brooch, her fingers shaking as they touch its cold surface. A jolt runs through her, as if Anne isn't just passing a jewel, but a silent coronation not of a throne, but of her unyielding spirit. No ceremony, no crown, no trumpets. Just two people, a tea tray, and an unspoken vow. Trooping the Color, the monarchy's grandest annual event, draws the world's eyes to the House of Windsor. After her speech at Westminster, her resolve at Ascot, and the profound tea with Princess Anne at Gatcombe Park, Charlotte has become a symbol of hope for the royals. The silver horseshoe brooch, Anne's heirloom, is more than jewelry. It's a reminder of duty and defiance. But public pressure grows heavier. The press dubs her Anne Reborn, while skeptics whisper, "Can a 10-year-old truly carry the weight?" Today at Horse Guards Parade, Charlotte is about to do the unthinkable. Everyone expects Charlotte to appear beside her mother, Catherine in a dazzling dress waving from the balcony as usual. But as the parade begins, the crowd gasps when the 10-year-old steps out, first side by side, with honor guards in scarlet uniforms. Charlotte wears a simple outfit, a white blouse, a navy skirt, no ornate patterns. On her chest, the horseshoe brooch glints in the sun, a small flame declaring her presence. William on the royal grandstand grips Catherine's hand, his eyes torn between pride and worry. "Who decided this?" he whispers, his voice tense. Catherine places her hand on his, her gaze fixed on their daughter. "Your father," she replies, referring to King Charles. "He said it's time Charlotte proves she's part of the monarchy's future." William's lips tighten, knowing this isn't just an honor, it's a test thrusting Charlotte into the scrutiny of millions. Charlotte walks each step, measured, her head high. Inside, her heart pounds like it's trying to escape. The brooch feels heavy on her blouse, echoing Anne's words at Gatcombe. "You will get to choose how you become." She recalls Ascot pulling Louis from the broken carriage and Anne's letter, with its line about the light I once had. Today she walks not just for herself, but for Anne, who spent a lifetime serving in silence. The crowd roars applause, crashing like waves. But amid the smiles and waving flags, Charlotte feels the weight on her shoulders. She's no longer just a girl, she's a symbol of continuity, of hope, that the monarchy remains strong even as Anne lies in a hospital bed. She clenches her fists, determined not to let anyone see her waver. As the parade ends, a BBC reporter intercepts Charlotte just before the royal enclosure. Cameras zoom in, flashes blazing like a challenge. "Princess Charlotte, how do you feel about leading Trooping the Color today?" the reporter asks, her tone tinged with curiosity. Charlotte pauses, taking a deep breath. She touches the horseshoe brooch, feeling its cool surface, as if Anne stands beside her. She looks directly into the camera, her eyes blazing, and says, her voice clear and powerful, "I'm here because Princess Anne was there." The square falls silent, as if every sound is swallowed. Then applause erupts, thundering loud enough to drown the honor guard's trumpets. The crowd cheers, some wiping tears moved by the girl's simple yet profound words. Cameras capture the moment, and within minutes, Charlotte's quote spreads worldwide. Headlines proclaim Charlotte honors Anne a princess's promise, and 10-year-old rewrites Trooping the Color history. In the royal waiting room, Catherine hugs Charlotte tightly, whispering, "You made me so proud," but her eyes betray worry. "Are you okay?" she asks, touching her daughter's cheek. Charlotte nods, smiling with pride. William approaches, kneeling to meet her eyes. "You did something even I'm not sure I could," he says, his voice low but warm. "But you need to rest. I don't want you carrying too much." Charlotte looks at her father, her gaze steady. "I want to keep going, Dad," she says. "For Anne, for all of us." William smiles, but it hides his concern. His daughter is growing up faster than he imagined. To him, Charlotte is still the little girl who called him Papa and clung to him when he came home. Now she has her own will, making her own choices. After Trooping the Color, Charlotte is no longer just a princess waving to crowds. Her words, "I'm here because Princess Anne was there," have etched her name into the public's heart, making her a symbol of continuity. The press calls her the monarchy's new flame, but the glory comes with unrelenting pressure. The silver horseshoe brooch, Anne's gift, remains pinned to her clothes, a reminder of her duty and the silent vow at Gatcombe Park. Choose how you become. Now the 10-year-old begins a new journey, not as William's daughter, but as Anne's spiritual heir. Charlotte visits a children's hospital in London, reading stories to young patients. She sits on a small chair, her clear voice recounting tales of flying horses, but her eyes watch each child's face, a habit learned from Anne, who always prioritized people over protocol. The next day, she travels to a community center in Manchester, awarding scholarships to underprivileged students. When a shy girl asks, "Do you ever get scared?" Princess Charlotte smiles, touches her brooch, and replies, "Yes, but my great-aunt taught me to keep going, and the fear passes." The public adores Charlotte. Newspapers publish her photos with headlines, "Charlotte Anne's heart lives on," and "Little Princess Big Impact." But each event is a test. Charlotte learns to balance a perfect smile with real emotions, scripted words with her own heart. She feels the pressure, but whenever she wants to stop, she thinks of Anne, the woman who never gave up even at the cost of her health. Catherine stands behind her daughter, a silent guardian. She tracks Charlotte's schedule, carves out moments for rest, and reminds her to drink water during long engagements. "You don't have to be perfect," Catherine says one evening when Charlotte is exhausted after an event in Birmingham. "Just be you." Charlotte nods, but her eyes burn with resolve. She wants more. She wants to be worthy of Anne's legacy. William watches from a distance, rarely speaking. He stands in a corner as Charlotte speaks at a charity, his eyes filled with pride, but tinged with pain. He remembers when Charlotte ran carefree in Kensington's gardens, like any child. Now she's growing up too fast, carrying a burden even he finds heavy. "She's doing it," he whispers to Catherine one night, watching a news report about Charlotte. "But I'm scared she'll burn out." Catherine takes his hand, silent, but her eyes say she shares that fear. One afternoon at King Edward VII Hospital, Princess Anne sits by a window in a book-filled room, faint sunlight on her pale face. A small radio plays a news report about Charlotte, the anchor's voice warm. Princess Charlotte, only 10, continues her charitable journey, bringing Princess Anne's spirit to the people. Anne listens, her thin hands clasped in her lap. As the report ends, she smiles, a rare smile, both proud and serene. "Now I can rest," she whispers, her eyes distant. She recalls the tea at Gatcombe when Charlotte asked if she'd ever do what she wanted. Anne knows the road ahead won't be easy, but Charlotte has chosen her path, not to replace her, but to be a new light. That evening at Kensington Palace, Charlotte returns from a long day at an orphanage. She sits at her desk writing a letter by hand, a habit learned from Anne. "Dear Aunt Anne," she writes today, "I met a boy with no family. I told him about you, how you're always strong. I hope I can be like that too." She folds the letter, planning to send it to Gatcombe Park for Anne to read. William enters, kneeling and placing a hand on her shoulder. "You make me proud every day," he says, his voice low and warm, "but you don't have to do it alone. I'm here, Mum's here, and Aunt Anne, she's always here." He touches the brooch on the desk, his eyes gentle. Charlotte looks up, her eyes bright despite her fatigue. "I know, Dad," she says. "I'm doing this because I want Aunt Anne to be proud, and because I want our monarchy to go on." William smiles, but inside pride and worry collide. His daughter is no longer a child, she's the future of the House of Windsor. The monarchy's future remains uncertain. Public pressure, royal expectations, and Anne's fading health are daunting challenges. But Charlotte, with confidence and maturity beyond her years, is writing a new chapter. Every step she takes, every word she speaks, proves that Anne's light will never fade. It lives on in the 10-year-old who chose to become not just a princess, but a symbol of hope and duty. Like, share, and subscribe to support Charlotte's inspiring journey, and stay tuned for new chapters in the royal saga.